me, Vicki Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So in this video, we are going to talk about the Mushroom Murderess, Erin Patterson. Now, she has actually gone into the hellhole, but of course she's going to appeal. You know, she was sentenced, is it 33 years she was sentenced to minimum? But then she has got the opportunity for parole. And of course, a lot of people feel that she should not have got the opportunity for parole. But anyway, she's appealing. So we're going to look at the reasons she's given for appealing. And then we're going to have a look at a podcast where a guy who was at the trial is talking about what actually happened in the trial, his impressions from it. And he's actually written a book from the viewpoint of a juror, an imaginary juror. And I just think a very interesting podcast. It's on the Australian news channel. I tried to contact them to see if it was okay to use it, to react to, and they haven't answered. So I hope they don't strike me for it. But it's interesting, and it's actually in two parts. We're going to look at part one today. Now let's have a look at Erin in the hellhole. She has already gone into the hellhole. Do you know, it's difficult to feel sympathy for Erin because, you know, she's such a narcissist. She murdered 3 people and she nearly killed poor Ian Wilkinson. He was just lucky to escape with his life, but of course he lost his lifetime partner. You know, so it's not ideal, even though he survived. He lost his lifetime partner, Heather, and he's got to cope not only with losing her, but the way in which he lost her. And we're going to see in this podcast, you know, you cannot underestimate the hell these people went through, the pain, the misery, the suffering. This was not, you know, this was a planned, malicious act. A woman sitting there watching these people eat what she knows is going to kill them, and just doesn't bear thinking about. Well, she, of course, is still insisting she's innocent, even though she's been found guilty. She's insisting she's innocent. It was a terrible mistake, despite all the many, 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 many lies she told. She's saying that now she's telling the truth. She had nothing to do with it. Although she'd said originally she never foraged for mushrooms, she never had a dehydrator, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. Now she's saying, oh, yes, she did forage for mushrooms. She did have a dehydrator. You know, and it was just a terrible mistake. She must have got mixed up. She must have got mucked up. So that's what we're going to talk about anyway, the grounds for her appeal and this podcast in the main part of this video. Now, as you know, I always start off with a little bit of waffling. The first thing I want to tell you about, it's not a waffle really, it's just is some news. It's only a brief bit of news about Gus Lamont, this little 4-year-old missing. They are going back to search. So they've done so many searches. Of course, they've taken dogs out there. The world and his dog literally have been looking for this little boy out in Yunta in Australia, and he has not been found. And recently, just over the last week, they drained the dam on the property, on his Gmail's property where he went missing from. Didn't find anything. But they are going back. They're going back sometime later this week. So I just wanted to give you that news that, you know, they haven't given up. They're still looking for this little boy. The other bit of waffle I wanted to tell you, I'm not looking for anybody. So I had some shopping delivered yesterday. This is a complete waffle. I need to put my waffle thing up. This has got nothing to do with anything except it's a waffle. If you don't like the waffle, you need to fast forward a little bit or wait till the video comes out de-waffled. So yesterday, I put a shopping order in to the supermarket or the day before, and it came yesterday. And I think I went a bit wrong with the green peppers. Now, I do like these green peppers. Now, the vegetables in Spain are just fantastic. I mean, they're all fresh because they're all grown in Spain. So they're all fresh and they're lovely. And I thought I ordered 6, okay, of these peppers, but I didn't realize it'd be as big as this either. You know, I thought they would be half that size probably. So I don't know what I did. I must press the button too many times, because now I'm going to show you what I've got here, but there are still another 6 in the fridge. So I got 6, 7, sorry, that's 7, 8, 9, 10. No, don't think that's it. Don't think that's it. 11, 12, 13, 14. You think that's it? Obviously press the button too many times. What did I get up to? Can't even remember now. Was it 14? 15? 16? 17? 18. So I have 18 of these. 18 massive peppers, which is good, isn't it? I mean, I love them. They're lovely. But so, answers on the postcard. What shall I do with them? I mean, I'm going to make a soup, definitely, and they're nice sort of fried, like stir fries and things like that. But, you know, I'm going to be eating them for quite a long time. Good job I like vegetables, and my son as well, he likes vegetables. So, you know, they won't get wasted. I don't think you can freeze them, can you? But I could make things with them and freeze them. So, answers on a postcard, please do. What sort of recipes can you make with these? You know, in bulk. That's like, oh dear me. So there you go. That's green peppers. I think a curry will have to be involved. Stir fry, soup, stew. I don't know. Lots of things. So that's what I'm going to be eating for the next week. So whatever happened there happened. Must have pressed the wrong button or the right button, but pressed it too many times and ended up repeating the order. Could have been worse. Could have been something that we don't like that much, I suppose. Could have been mushrooms, you know, because I am back eating mushrooms again after the sort of a brief went off mushrooms during the Erin Patterson trial. I have gone back to eating mushrooms. Anyway, enough of that frivolity. I'm going to say thank you. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to everybody who watches. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Press notifications. Yeah, very special thank you to my members. Can you believe it's Members Live again tomorrow, Thursday? I'm looking forward to that. We're going to look at what we didn't have time to do last week, which was we're going to have a look at a YouTuber's video about Nicola Bulley and how the Man in Black seems to have come back into the fore. But anyway, that's what we're going to talk about members tomorrow. I may talk about before that. I'm not sure, so we'll see. What else? But it is Members Live tomorrow, so we will be talking about something interesting, whatever it is. What else? So yeah, very special thank you to my members. Very special thank you to those of you who buy me a Ko-fi, send a super sticker, send me suggestions for cases. I do plow through my emails. You know, I don't always get back to people straight away, but I try my very best. Thank you for leaving nice messages or comments. Anyone who contributes positively to my channel, thank you so much. The other thing I want to say, of course, is thank you and hello to you lovely lurkers. Thank you for watching. Hello and thank you to you lovely replay crew. Thank you for watching. I hope you're all well. And now I'm going to come into the chat, see who's brave enough to actually come into the chat. And all my lovely chatters, all my lovely snowflakes, all individual and beautiful in their own way. Well, we are. We're all individual and beautiful in our own way, aren't we? Hi, Alana. Yes, you were the first. Hi, Blue. Yeah. Hi, Lily. Hi, Darren. Hi, Julie. I hope your car's all well now. Yeah, I hope you're well and happy as well. Doesn't surprise me, Alana. The judge who sentenced her gave a teen who committed life crime bail, and then the teen committed again. Of course he did, because do you know what? There's no proper punishment, is there? There's no consequences for these people. Oh, the peppers are beautiful. They're beautiful. Peppers for the next fortnight. Open, oh yeah, maybe we could sell them on. Open a kebab shop, says Darren. Actually, kebabs are a good idea, aren't they? Yeah, I could make some nice kebabs. I do like a kebab. I thought I'd turn my banner off, but it's still there. Hang on. Yeah, make a nice stuffed peppers. The thing is, they're not those sort of, they're frying peppers. They're not like your normal, they're not like your normal, they're not the bell pepper. They're not bell peppers. They're for frying. They're very popular in Spain. Paella, put them in the paella. They put them in everything. So yeah, they'll get you. Paella is a good idea, actually. I could make paella or risotto or something like that as well. Hi, Miss Lee. Peppers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'll be peppered out by the end. After a fortnight of eating peppers, I'll probably never be able to face another pepper ever again. I do like peppers, luckily, because I do like vegetarian things. So anyway, I'm going to do that modern thing that we all do these days. I'm going to Google it. Google all the different recipes that I can make with it. Today we'll be having a stir fry, that's for sure, with these peppers, and they are lovely. In fact, I'm getting hungry thinking about it. It doesn't take much to make me hungry. I'm getting hungry thinking about the stir fry. So let's have a look at this appeal. What are her grounds for appeal? So yeah, the thing is, Erin, she's got money, hasn't she? So she can afford to appeal. I mean, she's brought on this very. I think she's replaced her old. I think hasn't she replaced Mr. Mandy now with a new guy? I think so. Anyway, let's see what it says in this article. So, Mushroom Murderer Erin Patterson is challenging her conviction on 7 grounds. She takes issue with jury management during deliberations and oppressive prosecution questioning while she gave evidence in her trial. Now, we went through every day of the trial, didn't we? We followed it. I read out all the occurrences in the trial, because there were no cameras, of course, but we followed it day in, day out. And you tell me, did you see any oppressive prosecution questioning? She volunteered to give evidence. She was the only person who spoke in her defence, wasn't it? And she stood there for 3 days. And held forth with Colin Mandy, her defence lawyer, and now she's moaning about her oppressive prosecution questioning. This woman, just when you think she can't get any worse, she gets worse, doesn't she? She's obnoxious, revolting, nasty, narcissistic. She's going to put the victims and the families all the way through it again, because she was the one who volunteered to testified for 3 days, and held forth with her own defence lawyer. She gets annoyed because Nanette Rogers, the prosecution lawyer, she wasn't having any of it, was she? She was brilliant. So what she means by oppressive is effective, isn't it? Oh, bloody oppressive prosecution questioning. What she means is she was bloody good. Horrible woman. So she's now 51. 51-year-old was convicted in jail for life in September. Thank you, God. With a non-parole period of 33 years. Now, this might backfire on her because that because she's appealing, the prosecution are appealing as well, the leniency of a sentence. So she may well end up with a bigger sentence. Let's hope so. I'll be praying for that every day. After being found guilty of murdering her former in-laws, Don and Gail, 70, and Gail's sister Heather, 66. A jury found, and the thing is, although they were elderly, if you like, they're in the twilight of their years, but they still had lots of years left. And, they're in the part of their life where they should have been relaxing, enjoying their grandchildren, etc. It's so vile what she did. And she did it because they were vulnerable. They were excited to go to lunch with Erin. It was like, and they said it was delicious. They probably enjoyed being cooked for, doing something different. That bitch, honest to God, I'm sorry, she's nothing but an absolute bitch. A jury found that she deliberately served beef Wellingtons laced with death cap mushrooms to her lunch guests in July 2023 at her Leongatha home in regional Victoria. She was also convicted of the attempted murder of Heather's husband, who fell seriously ill but survived. So her lawyers have lodged a formal application to appeal her convictions in the Supreme Court. Sorry, just check that. The grounds for her appeal application were released on Wednesday. So she says there was a fundamental irregularity while the jury was sequestered during the trial. After the jury was sent out for deliberations, it was revealed that they'd been placed in the same hotel as the police informant and 2 members of the prosecution team. Now, that is true, but the thing is, this place where she chose to have this court case is a tiny place. It's not like a great big choice of hotels. So, looking back, though, at that, you can see but she's still got to prove that they actually spoke to each other. And, she's still got to prove that they actually colluded in some way, just because they were staying at the same hotel. Yeah. And yes, she did, Alana. She asked to have the trial in Morwell, in the tiny place, because she thought that they would be naive, like Simon's relatives that she invited for lunch, that they would believe her. They believed her when she lied about having cancer or blah, de blah, de blah, all the lies. I mean, I couldn't, if I was to go through all the lies she told now, that would take up this whole video. I wouldn't have time to actually talk about anything else. And yeah, she took the trial. She had the opportunity to have the trial in Melbourne. She decided to go to Morwell because she thought the jurors would be just as innocent, just as naive, and they would believe the shite she came out with. Well, she was wrong, and they didn't, because although maybe they are a bit naive or whatever, but they probably can, there were so many lies that she told. Who could have believed her? Nobody could. So Justice Christopher Beale said at the time. The jury had a floor to themselves and they were separated from other guests of the hotel. So, I can't say that's got no, that's not going to wash, is it? She further claimed a substantial miscarriage of justice occurred because of the prosecution's unfair and oppressive cross-examination of her when she gave evidence over several days in the trial. And as I say, what she means by unfair and oppressive is not taking any of her bullshit. She said that the prosecution's opening and closing arguments caused a substantial miscarriage of justice because they introduced an implied motive at the end of the trial. She's so full of crap. The mushroom cook has also taken issue with evidence that was aired in court. She said that evidence relating to the cell towers, death cap mushroom sightings in Loch and Outram, posted to the iNaturalist website and from Facebook friends and messages should not have been permitted because they were not relevant. Of course they were relevant, you idiot, and unfairly prejudiced her. She also claimed that Justice Beale bent over backwards for this woman. But not as far as she's concerned. He heard when he ruled that photos and videos related to mushrooms found on an SD card at her home was inadmissible during the prosecution case. So she's always maintained her innocence, claims it was a terrible accident. This is the House of Horrors where it all took place. We always have to go back to this scene. So she's spent months preparing these murders. And if her husband had turned up, her ex-husband, estranged husband, Simon, he would be dead now too. She'd already tried to kill him on several occasions. So just picture the scene. She's welcoming them all in. Oh, hi, I haven't seen you for ages. Oh, how are you? Oh, well, I've got cancer actually, but apart from that, I'm fine. A big load of shite that she was talking to them. She's invited them in. She's served them up a dinner that she knows will kill them slowly. She's chatted to them. She's lied about having cancer. They've prayed for her. She's let them pray for her. And then she said goodbye to them all, knowing that they were dead people walking. What an awful woman. You can't get much more evil than that. The planning that took place, the horrible nature of the poisoning. It would have been better off just shooting them, because at least then it would have been instant. It was not instant for these poor people. They suffered over days in agony. Their organs died inside them until poor Heather could not be given a transplant. Ian survived because he was given a transplant, and he must have a stronger constitution, and it worked for him. Heather was too ill to get a transplant. Gail was too ill to get a transplant. Don was given a transplant, but he was already too ill, and it didn't save him, unfortunately. So also, don't forget, the Crown prosecutors have lodged their own appeal in October over her manifestly inadequate sentence. So she's taken a chance. But, that's how sort of full of her own self-importance she is. She'll think, and she may, something may be found in her favour. Who knows? But the thing is, it may also, because the Crown prosecution had said clearly that if she appealed, they would appeal. So she's gone ahead and appealed. So now the prosecutors have appealed against the manifestly inadequate sentence. So this could backfire on Erin. So Justice Beale noted when sentencing, her offending was the worst category of murder and represented a betrayal of trust towards the family. But he showed her mercy. He did show her mercy with the chance of parole, because she would essentially be in solitary confinement for at least 22 hours a day. So he gave her a little break. But The Director of Public Prosecutions, Diana Piekus, said the judge had erred by finding there was a substantial chance Patterson would be held in confinement for years to come. Beale accepted there was no proven motive, but he found she concocted an elaborate story to cover up her offending, including lying about a food dehydrator and having cancer. So that's the appeal. That's the appeal. Let me know what you think. Yeah, Pinocchio. Well done, Lily. Yeah, we've still got our Pinocchio. Let's have the Pinocchio. Actually, we'll put the... I'm going to put the Pinocchio thing up as well. Absolutely horrible, horrible woman. I mean, literally, you don't get much worse murders than this one. Because I haven't used my Pinocchio thing for a while. Yeah. I think people are stupid enough to believe it. So where's she going to get this case heard, this appeal? Is she going to go back to Morwell, or is she going to go to Melbourne? I think she made the calculation that people in Morwell would be more likely to believe her because there were more country people. But of course, you know, maybe what she forgot was the people in Morwell were the people like Ian and Gail and Don and Heather, and maybe, you know, they realising that could have been them. So it'll be interesting to see where she chooses for the appeal. So that's the appeal. Let me know what you think. Of course, do you think she'll be successful in this appeal? Or do you think she's got no chance? Do you think she'll end up with a harsher sentence? You know, I think most of us hoped that she would get life without parole. She doesn't deserve parole even in her 80s. You know, these people, Don and Gail and Heather and Ian, Ian's on a life sentence. Even though he's alive, he's still on a life sentence. He's lost his wife, he's lost his friends. He's also got, you know, still got health issues because of what he went through. He's got the trauma of what he went through. I bet he's frightened to death of anyone cooking a meal now. But most importantly, for what he said, is the loneliness that he's feeling. Him and Heather were married forever. You know, they've been married, they were teenage sweethearts, just the same as Don and Gail were. You know, and Don and Gail hopefully are together somewhere, but still, they may have been 70, but they could, like, you know, they could still have had another 20 years ahead of them to enjoy their retirement, etc. You know, and they won't get a chance at parole, will they? Because they're dead. They're gone. Finito. No coming back. That's the end of it for them. Erin, as you know, she can have a life in prison. I would imagine, although prison's not probably a nice life, but if you've got money and things like that, there's things she can do that they can't do. They can't do anything. The three people she murdered. But she'll be able to do something. She'll be able to have contact with her children if they want it, I suppose. You know, God knows what she'll be able to do there in prison. But she'll have a life. Might be a prison life. It might not be a brilliant life. But she will have a life. She's got friends. She's got that pal who'll be going to visit her, I suppose. And, you know, I don't know, supporting her for whatever reason. So yeah, it's disgusting, isn't it? Anyway, I found this podcast, as I say, it's very interesting because the guy who's talking He was actually at the trial, attended the trial. Now, although I think we followed a couple of different sort of live blogs, didn't we, from the trial? But the trouble with the live blogs is, as good as I think they did, the people that we followed, you're only getting one person's impression of it. You can't see for yourself because it was not televised. Only the sentencing was televised, wasn't it? So we could only go by what the bloggers, the podcasters tell us. So it's interesting to get another podcaster's view on what happened in the trial, who was there. I wish I would have been there. I really wish it wouldn't have been so far away. It would have been very interesting to be there. And then you can actually see firsthand what's happening. Because everyone has their different interpretation of things, don't they? That's human nature. So we're going to look at this podcast. As I say, it's in two parts. Today we're just going to look at the first part. Part one. So first of all, I need to give them their credit, as I said. So this is news.com Australia. I Catch Killers is the name of the podcast. I hope that they don't pick me up for copyright. I mean, it's fair use. I did write to them and ask them if it was okay. I got no reply whatsoever. So, what can I do? So I actually found it quite a while ago, but I'm glad I've left it till now because I could give you the news of the appeal as well. But I've been umming and ahhing whether to do it because, as I say, I don't know if they're going to pick me up on it or whether they won't like me doing it or what. But anyway, if they did pick me up on it, I will fight it because it is fair use. But anyway, I've subscribed. I've liked the video. Oh, I thought I'd subscribed. I thought I was on. Do you know, I swear some of these subscriptions, you subscribe and then they turf you off. It's really weird. Anyway, so yeah, go over there, subscribe. They do interesting interviews and things over all sorts of things, not just the mushroom murders, but anything that's going on in Australia. If you're interested in Australia news, it's an interesting channel to follow. So let's have a look.
That this could be happening to someone like her when she should be starring in her own life. Welcome to another episode of I Catch Killers. Erin Patterson caught the attention of the entire country when she murdered her family members by feeding them a meal laced with lethal mushrooms. Recently, Patterson...
I mean, at the end of the day, whatever, at this moment, she is a convicted triple murderer. She has been found guilty. She has been found guilty by 12 people, unanimous decision. So she is a murderer, and the only way that'll be overturned is if she has an appeal and her conviction's overturned. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But this moment in time, she's a convicted murderess. And we should not forget that. She's going to try and make it look as if she's not guilty or whatever, but she is. She is guilty, to all intents and purposes at the moment. And this case, it was a sensation, isn't it? It is a sensation. It's one of those cases because of its very bizarreness. It's very unusual. Poisoning's not that unusual, is it? But to poison 4 members of your extended family or your in-laws, just unheard of, isn't it? And I think also because Erin, on the surface was like this sort of mum. All these, I still haven't done the video, all the fallacies about Erin, that she's intelligent. She's not as intelligent as she thinks she is. That she's a good mum. She's not a good mum. That she's a good cook. She's not a good cook. She's not any of those things. They're just fallacies.
Was sentenced to life imprisonment after being convicted of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempt murder. And today, we're going to examine the case in great detail from a slightly different perspective. We're going to look at the case through the eyes of a fictional juror. Greg is the author of the recently released book, The Mushroom Murderess. We sat down and dissected the case from start to finish in a way that gives you an understanding of what the evidence was and how the case against this triple murderer was presented in court. We separate fact from fiction and provide you with a unique insight into the case. Have a listen. Greg Hadrick, welcome back to I Catch Killers.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, I say welcome back, and I know you've won a lot of awards in your time in the media world and screenplays and different things. But coming on,
Now, no offence to the guy, but I'm going to fast forward it because really we don't. I mean, if you want to watch the whole video, you can go onto their YouTube channel and watch it. But really, we're only interested in what's talking about the trial.
I probably still look at things through the lens of a homicide detective. I'm thinking that's not too hard. Yeah, I've got to look at the case. So yeah. There was a lunch organised, 5 people turned up. 1 person cooked the meal. 4 got critically sick from what they consumed. 3 of them died, and the 1 person that invited the people there prepared the meal, and she's fine. She was fine. Now, if you get a sense, because you've...
Yeah, I mean, when you put it as simply as that, so 5 people go to lunch, 4 people are so severely ill that 3 of them actually die. So they didn't just have a little bit of tummy trouble and a little bit of diarrhea or a little bit of sickness. They were so ill, so sort of within a couple of days they were dead. I mean, not instantly, it took time. They died from the inside out. Their organs died. They were critically ill. And then you've got Erin, who had a little bit of diarrhea, apparently, though there's no even evidence for that. She was just sort of trying to make it look as if she did. Erin, who decided to go on that long trip the next day to take her son to flying classes, even though she supposedly had an upset tummy. Well, we all know what it's like. You've got an upset tummy, you don't move from your toilet. You don't want to get caught short somewhere. It's horrible to have to go anywhere if you've got upset tummy. You just want to be at home with it, very close by to the toilet. That's how it is. Not Erin, no, she went on this long journey taking her son for his flying class, but she got caught short, didn't she? She said she had to go into the bush to go to the toilet, though her son doesn't remember her doing that. And then she stopped at the service station for, 7 seconds? Went into the toilets at the service station for 7 seconds. This woman was not ill, not like the others were ill.
Written a lot of crime dramas, so we're in the strike force room setting up the whiteboard and writing the names of the victims down and what's happened. There would be a lot of arrows pointing at Erin Patterson.
All of them, yeah.
Very, very quickly.
Yeah, and there were, as you know from the book, the police, she was in the frame before any of them died.
Yeah.
Really. They were, they were obviously hoping no one would die. But, from...
So she was in the frame, wasn't she, from the doctor at the hospital that got into trouble for being so honest in what he said afterwards. He said straight away he knew there was something strange because she went into hospital, discharged herself after 5 minutes, even though she knew that her relatives were all on death's door and she needed to go. As soon as they mentioned death cap mushrooms, she had to go back and clear up the crime scene.
From the first hours that they were called, all the arrows pointed to Erin.
Definitely. But what it's also, and in reading the book and understanding how the trial has played out and hearing the reports from the media, what it's reinforced to me, how quite often cases look like a walk-up start in homicide, but to prove it beyond reasonable doubt, and that crucial thing, beyond reasonable doubt, it's a high bar.
It is a high bar, but it should be. I think if you're talking about, depriving people of liberty for 30-odd years, it should.
Yeah. So, to prove something beyond reasonable doubt is difficult. especially with murders, because, you know, there's not normally witnesses to murders, are there? So it's only the person who's done the murder or possibly done the murder. The people who've murdered normally can't speak. I mean, this was a mistake for her. She must have been fuming that Ian Wilkinson survived, because he could give evidence, didn't he? He gave the evidence about the plates being different size, different colour. Normally, you know, victims don't get a chance, like murder victims obviously don't get a chance to testify, do they? So it is difficult to prove that somebody's killed somebody. And you know, the person who's been accused, they don't have to prove anything. It's the prosecution that has to prove that they've done it. They don't have to prove that they haven't done it, really. They don't have to prove anything. The onus is on the prosecution to prove they did it, not on them to prove they didn't.
Be a high bar. Yeah. But it is a difficult bar. As you say, the original headlines, 5 people eat a lunch, 1's fine, 4 are critically ill, 3 die.
Yeah.
You would think it would be a simple case. But every step along the way, the defence managed to put, you know, doubt here, doubt there. Are you sure? You can't say for certain that this happened. You can't say for certain that happened, etc. And they rack up.
And it's just that little bit of doubt in it.
Yeah.
The other thing about this case, and when we're talking about why people are so fascinated in these particular cases, we have, I think, a blind spot to women committing evil acts. And quite often we look when, in my career in policing, a woman couldn't have done that.
Yeah, there's that as well, isn't there? Sometimes people don't want to believe that women can do these terrible things, especially, you know, mums like Erin, who supposedly cares about her children, etc. There's this sort of, you know, oh, she couldn't have done that. You know, she's just this sort of mum from suburbia, really, isn't she? You know, unremarkable, really, in other ways, until you start looking into her a little bit more. You know, she is quite a strange character, but, you know, it is difficult to accept sometimes that women have done things, but women do terrible things all the time, unfortunately, just the same as men do. Maybe not so many of them, but they do. You know, maybe not so many women end up doing bad things, but they do.
If it was, if you flipped it, if it was reversed, if a man had invited his ex-wife's family over for a barbecue and 4 of them got critically ill, people would be going, okay, that's a bit of nasty human being. But we don't really look at it when that Dart character is a female.
No, it's funny he says that, because, of course, I think if it would have been a man, I would have been, you know, because men normally kill in different ways, you know, with guns, knives, with their hands, you know, implements, etc. Poison is more commonly used by women. But I'm not saying that men never use it, of course, but it's just men tend to kill in different, you know, women, typical ways that women kill is poison with a car, you know, those kind of things. It's rare for them to kill with rarer for them to kill with shotguns, weapons, etc.
Oh.
I think that's true. And I think, you know, in some senses it's it is much rarer for women to be particularly planned killers, to be premeditated is much rarer. And because it's rarer, people just don't believe it. The initial reaction is, that can't be right. You know, I don't think that could happen.
Well, this country, we've got a couple of high-profile cases that played out, and one of them, Lindy Chamberlain, to start with. We all looked at Lindy and we thought, okay, well, she's murdered
Zaria.
Zaria.
I'm going to fast forward there because I only really want to talk about Erin. And the actual case.
When was this?
This was, it would be probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
10 years ago, yeah. And the twist in that, and you've been a crime detective that investigated that matter on the
case that he's talking about here, I don't know about.
Podcast and walked in and, saw the skin hanging there.
He actually saw it.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, just a horrendous crime. There was another interesting case, and I'm just checking my notes here, but it was Natasha Darcy,
I don't know
widow
this
of
case.
Walter.
I'm not sure I know that case.
Okay, well, that was a situation where she poisoned her partner at the time, and there was a previous attempt where she tried to poison her former husband, but she wasn't successful there, and she ended up poisoning her second partner. So,
wow. When was this?
This was, it would be probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
10 years.
Now, probably there's loads of cases, but they don't all get the same attention, of course, that Erin's case has got. But let me just, so I'll say, really just interested in the trial.
Who left him? She walked out of the house.
Called
She
it.
took the kids with her, etc. So, and
Yeah, so he starts talking about how their relationship split up, how Erin and Simon's relationship split up in the first place. Now, it seems to be Erin who wanted to be separated from Simon, which is strange, isn't it? Because why was she so annoyed with him? You know, if it was her who wanted to finish with him. But to me, it's all about power and control with Erin. You know, she wanted to finish with him, but she didn't want him. She wanted the control over him and his family, and she got annoyed, I think. So that's why she borrowed the money and things like that. It's not from the goodness of her heart, because she's a control freak. And it gave her a lever over them. And then I think she got annoyed with them when they weren't being as grateful as she thought they should be. That is honestly what I think her motive is. And it might not seem like a logical motive, it might seem like a ridiculous motive, but you know, if we understood the motives behind these killers, that wouldn't be a good thing, would it? Because we could end up doing something like that. Most of us don't understand what would make somebody kill. We might understand why it'd make somebody angry. We all get angry, don't we? People are irritating sometimes. They don't do what you want them to, etc. But that we don't go as far as killers go. So it's hard to get your head around it.
You know, there's many relationships where I suppose that's the case, but I think often the only slight insight that I was thinking about with all of those was when things weren't going her way, she would act.
Yeah.
Rather than sort of argue through or just be silent or, just sort of get through the mood, etc. She would act.
Yeah.
And that's the only clue that I think you got to it. It was in the way she handled that relationship, was that when things weren't going her way, she did something about it.
That's interesting. Like, I'm obviously not a psychologist either, but if you're looking at motives or the actions type of thing, she's going to take control. If she's not happy with something, she's going to change it.
She's going to change it. Yeah.
And certainly committing the offence she did, she changed it in a big way.
Yeah.
Okay, when you first heard the case, before you decided you're going to be writing a book about it, what were your initial thoughts?
My initial thought actually was it made more sense if it was a terrible accident than a human being would spend months planning this, because from the very beginning you thought, well, if she's done it, she had to go out and pick death cap mushrooms, and the mushroom season was months before, etc. And so there was a whole planning behind it. And I don't know, when you just looked at it the first time, you thought, is that even possible that she could do that? So at the very beginning, I was more in the don't leap to, well, we say the Lindy Chamberlain thing.
Yeah. Don't
leap to guilty. The simpler explanation is somehow it was a terrible accident.
Yeah. You touched on there that the mushrooms, and I only found that out in research prepping for this, but death cap mushrooms are seasonal. So when the...
Now, I do think with Erin, if she had said from the beginning that, yes, she did forage mushrooms and, yes, she did have a dehydrator and she must have mixed them up, instead of coming out with all these lies about the Asian supermarket and not having a dehydrator and hiding her phone and, she probably, if she would have just held her hands up right from the minute that it came up, and played by the book, stayed at the hospital, sent her children to the hospital like anybody normal would, who was worried about maybe of being poisoned. She may well have got away with this. It's her lies that did it for her, because people are not stupid. If somebody lies about having a dehydrator, she can say, oh, she was worried that they might think it was her. I don't think you would think that at all. You've only got to imagine if it was you and you had people over to lunch and then the next day they were deathly ill and had to go to the hospital, and then you'd be worried whether you might have eaten something, your kids had had the leftovers, she wasn't worried about them. There's all those things. Whereas Erin, this is what I mean, she's not as clever as she thinks she is, because if she would have said from the minute go, oh my God, yes, I've got a dehydrator, yes, I did use some mushrooms that I'd foraged, oh my God, that's the way she could have got away with it, but she tried to do it a different way, because she's a thicko. She's a thicko who thinks she's clever, but she's not clever. To fast forward again a bit.
The three people have lost their lives, and Ian has had, lucky to survive and lost his wife, and so there's been a lot of tragedy.
Huge tragedy.
Associated with this, with her actions, as the court have found out. So you've got Don Patterson and Gail Patterson, her in-laws, or Simon's parents. What were they like as people?
As far as I can tell, the way that the various siblings described them in court is they were typical, loving, caring grandparents.
Yeah.
And parents to Simon. But in particular, the relationship with Simon and Erin's kids and with the kids of the other siblings was very strong, was very caring.
Yeah. I think this is what makes it worse as well. They were nice people. These people that she murdered, they weren't horrible people who'd been really nasty to her, and maybe, that you would think, oh, well, she shouldn't have done it. Obviously, nobody should be killing anybody else. But, if you could look at it and think, oh, well, they were so horrible to her and she must have mentally lost it. They weren't. They were nice to her. They were lovely to her. They did all they could to help in the whole situation, to mediate between her and Simon. Now, she probably felt that they stuck up more for Simon, but, Simon is their son. So they're bound to err a little bit on his side. That's human nature as well, isn't it? And another thing, I just want to mention while it comes into my head, because I often forget to say it. What about Erin's sister? Why is she not speaking up for Erin? Nobody spoke up for Erin. Nobody spoke up for her as a character witness. Even her pal, the one that, that was there. Why did she not speak? Who spoke? Nobody stood on there and said, oh, Erin Patterson could never have done anything like that. She loved Don and Gail and Heather. Nobody stuck up for her. She was the only person who spoke in her own defence, and now she's complaining about that.
He was tutoring the son in maths and helping him get through school, building backyard rockets with him and fun stuff, cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
Gail, they often would have the kids over at their place. Gail was very concerned about Erin's health, and there's a string of text messages where she's trying to offer her, support and prayers, etc., for the various ailments that Erin said she had.
Yeah.
So, how they came across to us in court, who never knew them personally, was kind, loving people.
Yeah.
That seems to be the narrative that's being portrayed about them,
and there's nothing to suggest anything but that.
And they seem like the perfect in-laws in a situation of separation. They were still staying in contact with
absolutely
Erin and not making life difficult and just being
constantly asking about the kids and helping where they could.
Yeah,
nice people.
Yeah, lovely people.
Terrible.
I say that because it all adds up to lovely people that she decided to kill.
Yeah.
Then you've got Heather Wilkinson and Ian Wilkinson. Now Heather was Gail's sister.
Yeah.
What was the relationship they had?
Well, they had
with Erin.
With Erin, it was more distant. Like Don and Gail, you could track through phone calls and text messages, etc. Quite a relationship. They were the kids' grandparents, etc.
Yeah, Ian and his wife Heather, they didn't really know Erin that well, just seen her at church, etc. But they were delighted to get an invitation for that reason, because they'd never been invited to the house before. And I think the reason that Erin invited them is because she thought that if she invited all them, then Simon was more likely to go. In my eyes, Simon was definitely her target. But as I say, she tried to kill him several times before, it seems. How he didn't tell his parents, look, you must not go and eat with that woman, because he knew really that she had a proclivity to poison, because she'd probably poisoned him. He'd been seriously ill. So that is a bit of a mystery to me. If that was my parents, I'll tell you what, I would have said, there's no way you're going to have lunch with Erin. But, she blackmailed them into going, didn't she, by saying she had something important to talk about. She really laid it on thick about her cancer, her imaginary cancer. That, again, is just horrible, isn't it? She should get an extra 10 years for lying about having cancer. It's disgusting to do that. All the people that get cancer and have to live with it day in, day out, and hopefully survive, but not always. And she's out there saying, oh, yeah, I've got cancer. It's just awful. Everything she's done is awful. And then as she's saying that to them, she's murdering them with the meal that she's serving them up. And I think she did it out of spite. I honestly do think it was to do with spite, because I think she felt that if she couldn't get Simon to kill Simon, they should kill them instead. She'll make him suffer. This, we can't get our head around that, but there's a lot of people do that to make the other person, if they can't get access to the person really that they want to kill, that they want out of their life, they kill someone who they care about, so that they know they will suffer for the rest of their life. So I think there's that in this as well. Unfortunately, there's nobody more despicable
Ian and Heather
than Erin, I don't think.
were part of an extended family that Erin didn't appear to have all that much to do with. They were friendly. They saw each other at church every, second or once a month or whatever, once a fortnight. But as it was said at court, that was the first time that she'd ever actually invited Ian and Heather, to a lunch at her place. They'd met at Christmas parties and, big family celebrations for birthdays, etc.
Yeah.
But a specific, why don't we come and have lunch, that was the first time.
My mind's processing it, like you're breaking it down, and sometimes when you think about it, and why even include those people in there? Like, what's the connection? What are you trying to achieve?
And it's a dangerous game trying to get inside Erin Patterson's head. But all that was said again, as far as I can remember, that came out in the evidence at court was that when she'd had a lunch, which the prosecution sort of put as almost like a trial run, about a month before, 4 or 5 weeks before, which was shepherd's pie, no mushrooms involved.
Yep.
And at that lunch, which the kids were there, and Don and Gail and Erin, and Simon wasn't, and Gail had said that Heather would love the garden. Right. Because obviously, I presume, Heather was a keen gardener. Yeah. Erin's block was 2 or 3 acres, something in Leongatha, and she'd landscaped a lot of it, and it had mulched and new plants, etc. So it was a lovely looking garden. And
See, this is the other thing we don't really understand about Erin, isn't it? She sort of had everything, really, didn't she? She had money, she had a lovely property, she had 2 kids. Why did she put all that at risk?
Gail had mentioned that it was one that Heather would really appreciate, seeing. And it seems as though that's why they were invited.
Okay.
There was no other real reason. So that when at church on the 16th of July, when Erin invited Don and Gail to lunch, it appears as though Gail was talking to Heather, and she approached both of them and said something like, no one can remember the exact words, but effectively, just the people I wanted to see. The lunch was for Don and Gail, but, Heather was there with her, and Gail had previously said that she'd love the garden, so why don't you and Ian come along as well?
Right.
That seems to be it.
Well, yes.
So it's sort of manipulating people's feelings toward her
Yep.
in a way that she felt would bond her again with the family, and yet put her at the centre of the story.
The centre.
That's the best I can do.
Well, what you and your juror mate have come up with, my reading of it, taking in all the information I've got, and again, it's only speculation, it felt like to me a woman that was really alone and was worried about losing the family. Like that was, she mightn't have got on with them, she might have fought with them or whatever, but she was fearful of being alone, and then...
Well, I understand that, but of course she did lose them because she killed them, so she lost them anyway. So it doesn't make sense, that argument, really. If she was worried about losing the family, then why did she kill them? Because then she did definitely lose them, didn't she? So don't know about that.
That fear somehow turned into resentment and then anger and then, along those lines. To me, there's not much talk of the other community or friendships that she had. Was it very much family orientated?
Yes, it did feel like she was very family oriented, because remember she wasn't working, so it's not as though she had a workspace with work colleagues or anything like that. She had applied to do a course in nursing at the beginning of 2023, but then deferred it. So other than dropping the kids at school or the school bus stop, there was nothing else.
Yeah, so a fixation of that she's going to lose the only family she's got. Has she got a family, like her family is separate from...
I believe she has a sister.
Yeah,
I think she might have been mentioned a couple of times in court. Her father died in 2011.
Yeah, they need to look back about a father and a mother dying, I think, what happened there, because this woman, I wouldn't trust her with anything. But yeah, she has a sister. She keeps saying, I've got no family, I've got no family. She's got a sister, but she's obviously not really close to her. But yeah, she wasn't worried about being alone, I agree, because she's even more alone now than she was before. I think it was just pure spite, honest to God, I do. Or she may have thought that by killing them, that would drive Simon closer to her, and she would get her control back over Simon. Do you think she thought that? Because she likes control, doesn't she? So although, Dom was a good granddad to her kids and this, that and the other, maybe she just didn't like any outside influence and she wanted the control completely of her kids.
But very few details about that.
Yeah.
Her mother died in 2019. There's a suggestion that she had breast cancer and might have died of breast cancer, but that's not quite clear.
Yeah.
So she'd lost both her parents. Didn't seem to have, as far as you can tell from the what's presented at court, didn't seem to have any particular relationship with her sister. So her only family was the Patterson family. And
it appears that it was growing further and further apart. And I suppose as the children get older...
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. They were going further apart. So she just felt out of control. I think it's just spite, control. Someone like Erin, those things are important to her. Right, I'm going to fast forward again a bit because I've got some...
Was in the coma for a time after...
and he was, but he just remembers it as just normal domestic chit chat. There's a feeling that a bit of politics got discussed, and you have to remember the yes vote to Parliament was going on at the time.
At the same time,
yeah. But it was when they had finished the beef Wellingtons, the main course. They brought over Gail had brought a cake and Heather had brought a fruit platter.
Yeah.
Not much of that was eaten because the beef Wellingtons were very filling. And that's when Erin said that she wanted to talk to them about the cancer diagnosis.
Okay.
Which was bullshit.
But she played that card.
And so as people say now, I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead of the question, but she would have known what they were eating through that entire lunch.
Yeah. That's what I can't get my head around.
It's staggering, really.
Well,
just watching them chew every mouthful, knowing what was going to happen. horrible. I bet she was smirking away.
You look at murder, and it can be a crime of passion. There can be all sorts of reasons for a murder, but the planning that goes into that, and then victims that, honest approach is she's got no reason to hate these people.
No one could find any.
You could hate your ex-partner or whatever, but whether that you go to the extreme of killing the person, but no animosity with these people. They showed her only love, respect and kindness.
Yes.
That's the sense, and the fact that they were even buying into, you poor thing, you might be suffering from cancer, and I would imagine they said all the right things there.
They did, and prayed for her.
Yeah.
So, having fed them a meal that would kill them, she then got them to pray for her.
Callous.
Oh my God.
It's astonishing.
Unbelievable.
Simon wasn't there, but he was.
Simon was not there.
He was invited.
He declined the invitation with a text on the Friday afternoon, or Friday evening, really, just saying he felt uncomfortable going. And in the court, and my narrator in the book is slightly annoyed because no one ever asks what was he uncomfortable about.
Right.
He just says he was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not till after the trial and
that he could explain
why he was uncomfortable.
Because it couldn't be talked about these previous attempts on his life because it would have compromised the trial. So we found out why he was uncomfortable, because she tried to kill him 3 times already. But he, she, even that very last text that she sent to him was, "I expect to see you there tomorrow," wasn't it? Or along those lines. So she still thought he might turn up. And when he didn't turn up, instead of abandoning the idea, she killed those other people instead out of spite. What a nasty bitch.
He'd said a very similar, with the previous lunch on the 24th of June, the shepherd's pie lunch, same thing. He responded saying, "No, I don't think, I'll go." He did say to her, "If you want to discuss, how we should talk to the kids about any medical issue you might have, or you want to talk about your medical issues with me, give me a call."
Yeah.
Very happy to keep talking with her and keep co-parenting the kids. Just didn't want to sit down and eat anything she'd cooked.
That's telling. But the jury weren't aware of the details other than...
Now, another thing we don't know, and I don't know that if it's true, and this is pure speculation on my part, it just makes you wonder, had Simon met somebody? Had he started seeing somebody? Was she realised? Because, of course, Erin's been in control completely. It was her who walked out. He wanted to get back with her. It was her who didn't want to get back with him. But had he got to a point that maybe, even if he wasn't actually going out with somebody else, maybe there was somebody on the scene that, there's something has pushed Erin into this, all that resentment to come out like this. Just makes you wonder, this lack of control.
And he declined to go to the lunch.
They asked. They were given no further details on why that might be the case.
Okay. What were the after effects of the meal? So everyone, assuming you've described it, they've sat down, had a normal lunch, discussing what they've discussed. They've left. I'm sure they thanked Erin, and
they did. And Simon drops the kids back, the son and his mate, and the daughter actually stays with Simon, and they go back and have some father-daughter time.
Yeah.
The boys come in, and that's when Don and Gail and Ian and Heather head back home.
Okay.
And Ian had some meetings because he was going to deliver the service the next day.
Yeah.
So by 3:00 they've left.
Okay.
And in court, all Erin said was, well, she did a bit of tidying up, a bit of cleaning, etc. The boys went in and played computer games.
Yep.
In the TV computer room until around about 6:30 or so. And
now we do know now, though, don't we? She went straight to the dump after they went on that Saturday and dumped something. So we don't know. They think that's when she dumped the grey plates that have never been found. But she didn't just lounge around the house. She went straight off to the dump.
Then she needed to figure out when the son's mate needed to go back home.
Yeah.
And while this is going on, Heather has Don and Gail, head back to their home.
Yep.
They have a conversation with, I think, the daughter, who just, of course, they had to go. and there's mention of the fact that Erin's had a cancer diagnosis.
Okay, so that's something that can be relied upon.
Yeah. That's it's not just Ian saying that.
Yeah, that corroborates Ian's version. Yeah.
And they said that to Simon the following morning as well. Don and Gail and Ian and Heather are fine till around about midnight. Hard to put, no one notes the exact time, but call it sometime around about 11:30 midnight, 12:30. And pretty much within an hour, all four of them start having severe diarrhea and vomiting.
Right.
And so all of that would be around about 11, 12 hours after lunch.
They've digested the...
Yeah, after the beef Wellingtons.
Yeah.
So quite a long time after, 10, 11 hours, he's saying, that's what death cap mushrooms do. They kill you from the inside out. Now, probably most of you at some point in your life have had food poisoning or gastroenteritis. It's horrible, isn't it? I've had food poisoning only twice in my whole long life. And I still remember it as clear as anything. One was a Chinese takeaway from Reading when I lived in Reading in the UK. And one was here. It was some tapas in a restaurant in a town near me. I would never eat, it was pork. I would never eat pork since then. They'd obviously been lying there for too long. Normally, food is all fresh in Spain. I've never known, that was literally years ago, and I've never had any food poisoning since then. It's probably over 20 years ago. But I remember it as clear as anything. Food poisoning, gastroenteritis, those kind of things. It is miserable, isn't it? When you feel sick, you've got problems from both ends and you can't, you're in pain, you're in agony. Horrible. Do you imagine what these people went through? It's heartbreaking. And of course, what was happening, knowing now what was happening, their organs were dying. They were dying from the inside out. Horrible.
And that becomes significant because most viral and bacterial gastrobugs, you start feeling sick 2, 3, 4 hours later.
Yeah.
One of the things that first made the toxicologists suspect and wonder whether it could be death cap mushrooms was that delay.
Okay, and
that's rare.
Unique or rare.
It's rare, and it's specific, like death cap mushrooms.
Those medical stuff at the hospital, they were brilliant. They were brilliant to notice straight away because it's so rare to know, just brilliant to realise it wasn't right there. It could be because food poisoning doesn't normally take 11 hours to materialise.
Are known to take that long. They can't.
Right.
You can't get early symptoms. It just doesn't get through the liver and the bile and the blood in that time. So that was a not conclusive, but it was a strong indicator, given the fact that they'd eaten a beef Wellington with mushrooms in it, and they had 11 to 12 hours delayed presentation.
Yeah. Reasonable hypothesis.
It was a reasonable hypothesis pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What happened with Erin's journey through that Saturday evening, we largely have to take Erin's word for it, which is dicey, to say the least.
I think that's probably been very kind.
Yeah. So she drops her son's mate home about 7ish. She says to Simon the next day and she says to the child protection worker 2 or 3 days later that she started having diarrhea and nausea. She never claimed to vomit. She said she had nausea and diarrhea.
Yes.
And that she was starting to feel that around about 7 o'clock. And it was one of the small things that became an issue because if she had eaten the same meal as Don and Gail and Ian and Heather, she would not have got those symptoms
so early. Yeah. And that those little lies that she told and trying to
say I'm the same as them, I'm the same as them,
fit a story.
Yeah, but in fact it made the story harder
for her.
For her
once she realised what had happened. eventually they got admitted to hospital.
They did. The following morning, Don calls an ambulance, and he and Gail are taken straight to Crumborough Hospital.
And what are we talking in terms of a hospital there in the town?
Small, literally, there are 2 beds in the
so
in the
you're
emergency
lucky to
unit.
have a doctor on.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So the reason why Ian and Heather ended up at Leongatha Hospital was because Don and Gail were already in the 2 beds in Crumborough Hospital.
So it was at capacity.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Simon picks up Ian and Heather.
I didn't know that. So it's such a tiny hospital, and Don and Gail had already taken up the only 2 beds that were there. That's why Ian and Heather had to go to the other hospital.
And drives them. Well, he drove them to Crumborough, and they said, "Sorry, we're full with your parents." And so he was driving Ian and Heather to Leongatha, and that it's during that phase when Heather's saying to Simon, it puzzles her why Erin had a separate plate. She said, "We all had the same plates."
Yeah.
Don't think Simon doesn't say she actually said grey plates. That's very much what Ian's memory is, but he's very strong on that. But Heather did say to Simon, "We all had the same plates," and she had a different
plate.
So the good thing, if you like, of it taking longer went well. Heather was still sort of compos mentis. She remarked on the fact that they had different colour plates to Erin. So I think for them to mention that, or different types of plates, for her to mention that, she must have been suspicious, mustn't she?
Yeah. Why would that be? And she never goes that extra step.
Yeah.
But clearly she's thinking that it's weird.
Okay, it's just picking up that it's strange. You have a dinner party and the six plates. Even if you've lost a few, you can normally serve up.
So they start. It looks like they've got a severe case of normal viral gastro.
And so is the thought process, you think, going through their mind, they wouldn't be thinking we've been murdered at this stage.
No.
Maybe unhygienic the way she prepared the
meal, or who knows. Yeah.
They wouldn't be thinking they'd been murdered, and they would not be thinking they were going to die at that point. They were just thinking they've got a terrible bug. It'll get, or some terrible food poisoning. It'll get sorted, and then we can investigate, how it happened. They wouldn't have been thinking, bless them, that they weren't going to see, they weren't going to survive this.
What she fed us there was the meat.
You're more likely to think the meat.
Yeah.
And in fact, Dr. Chris Webster at Leongatha, his initial thought was it's probably off meat.
Of course.
Your mind doesn't go straight to death cap mushrooms.
Yeah.
And that's what they were thinking. And so they were doing a lot of the standard treatments that you would for people who are becoming dehydrated because they've had so much diarrhea and so much vomiting. So they have, saline drips and things like that to keep fluid up, etc. And that goes on through Sunday afternoon. It's Sunday afternoon, having done all that, a normal gastrobug, you'd start to settle down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don in particular, because he had 1.5, Beef Wellingtons, just kept getting worse.
Yeah. Normally if you've got food poisoning, it starts off terrible and then gradually gets better, doesn't it? It can take a few days, but normally it's bad at the beginning and then gradually lessens, doesn't it? If you drink water or take some medication or whatever, and you just have to get through it. But with these death cap mushrooms, it took a long time for it, 10 hours before it sort of started to kick in. And then it was never going to get better. It just gets worse and worse. All your organs dying slowly.
The diarrhea got worse, the vomiting got worse, and none of the normal simple things you do for ordinary gastro were having any effect. And they didn't have the sophisticated tests needed at Little Crumborough Hospital.
Yeah.
So they immediately said, well, they need to go to a higher tier hospital. Mm-hmm. So they put them in an ambulance and took them to Dandenong Hospital on Sunday night.
Okay.
And that's where Beth Morgan was the doctor in charge of them there. And Ian and Heather at this stage are still at Leongatha, but following a similar trajectory. Like just
as in the illness not getting better.
Illness not getting better.
If anything worse.
Yeah. They weren't. Don was the one who was really getting worse faster at that point in time. And it was his blood tests, the more sophisticated blood tests that Dandenong Hospital could do, that...
Well, don't forget that Don ate not only his beef Wellington, but he ate half of his wife, Gail's beef Wellington, because she couldn't eat it all. So he ate 1.5 times what anybody else ate, and he seemed to be the illest.
Started particularly getting Beth Morgan worried because they showed what's called an elevated lactate, and this is me not being a doctor but just reading the evidence that was put at trial. And it was the nature of that elevated lactate that indicated to her that there was significant liver damage happening, and this is not normal.
Yeah.
This is not your average gastro. And
when it's starting to damage
when it's starting to damage the liver.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a few other medico things around that which I can't quite remember, but that was a significant one. And she, later that evening, she gets on to Mark Douglas, the toxicologist. Meanwhile, while she's scratching her head about an elevated lactate, Erin is feeding, says, and the kids sort of say this too, is feeding the leftovers to her kids.
Yeah.
That's happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And I feel, and
I think Erin did that on purpose, didn't she? Fed the leftovers to her kids. I mean, didn't have any mushrooms on them. She deliberately engineered that, I think, because so that she could say, "Oh well, I gave my kids the leftovers and nothing happened to them." It is so much planning involved, but it was all shite planning. You know, her planning is completely. She planned it all wrong. Because she's not as clever as she thinks she is.
You know, from reading the book that in my juror, that's where she bumps the most.
Yeah, yeah.
That if Erin's claimed that she's had explosive diarrhea through Saturday night,
and she's aware that
the
guests are all in hospital and getting treated.
She was trying to back away from that, but the evidence is pretty strong that she knew that Don and Gail were in hospital.
Yeah.
So you know that your lunch has made you sick.
You're not going to dish it up to your kids.
Unless you know it's uncontaminated.
Well,
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think any parent... It doesn't just go against parenting, it goes against an instinctive human reaction to feeling sick after eating something. So that was very odd, and I think one of the things that really undid Erin.
Yeah.
So while the kids are having a great piece of steak, from leftover from Saturday lunch, Beth is talking to Mark Douglas, who's the toxicologist at Dandenong Hospital, and that's when the short, simple version, the medical version is much more detailed and complex. The short, simple version is they put together the liver damage coming from being noticed by the high lactate level, together with the long 12-hour separation between eating the lunch and actually having sudden symptoms and serious symptoms. And that's when Mark thinks, well, one explanation for this is death cap mushrooms.
Okay.
Now, his boss, toxicology boss at Dandenong, effectively says, yes, it could be, but it still could be many other things. We don't quite know where... We, sitting here now, can play hindsight. At that point in time...
there could be other factors.
There could be half a dozen other things. But at that point, they knew that death caps was on the table as a possibility. And so Beth Morgan at 7 o'clock on the Monday morning, she knows that Ian, the other two lunch guests, Ian and Heather, are at Leongatha Hospital, and she calls Chris Webster at Leongatha and says...
Yeah, and can you imagine, Erin, when they mentioned to her the possibility of death cap mushrooms and she realised, that's when she suddenly was like, oh, I've got to get out of here, I've got to go and do my daughter's ballet bag for school and, you know, feed the sheep or whatever it is, she said, because she just knew she had to get home and clear out all the evidence. She probably could not believe it when they so quickly mentioned death cap mushrooms. She really thought she was going to get away with this. She thought she'd been so clever.
We've got a deep suspicion that it was the mushrooms in this meal and it was death cap mushrooms that have created the problem here. And again, doctors are too cautious to say beyond doubt, but it was heavily suspected. And
that adds a whole nother layer of concern, because
it
where
does.
did these mushrooms come from?
Where did they come from?
Yeah.
Is there going to be an outbreak of death cap poisoning
Yeah,
through Melbourne?
Were they sold in the local supermarket? As someone.
So it
Yeah, because don't forget, Erin had said when they asked her where she bought the mushrooms, she said an Asian supermarket, but she couldn't remember which one. So there will have been this mad panic at first. Oh my God, we've got to find these, there could be people buying these mushrooms all over Melbourne, and there could be outbreaks of this. Could be a bad batch of mushrooms, so, and it did. There was someone had to go and try and find out, wasn't there? And so that is another big mistake that Erin made when she said, a sort of knee-jerk reaction when they asked her, where did you get the mushrooms from? And she said, an Asian supermarket. That undid her, because if she would have said I foraged them, I think she might have had more of a chance of saying that it was all a terrible accident. But once she said that, and again, not as clever as she thinks she is, she thought they wouldn't take it any further, but they had to, because other people could have bought those mushrooms.
Their main fear wasn't, has people been murdered?
Yeah.
It was public health.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was, oh my God, we've got to stop this from becoming a public health issue.
Yeah.
And so they were worried about Erin, because they thought that she could well be at home with the same symptoms violently ill. Yeah. So when Erin arrives at Leongatha Hospital at around about 8:05 on the Monday morning, Chris Webster's basically going, thank God we're wondering where you are. Stay here. We suspect that your other lunch guests are they're very unwell. Exactly what was said here. Lots of people remember slightly different versions of those conversations,
as they do. Memory. Yep.
And doctors have to be careful of. Gee, if I say I said that, maybe I've broken patient confidentiality. On the other hand, he was trying to save lives.
Yeah.
And trying to identify where the mushrooms came from in case it became a public health issue. So he says, and she tells him that the kids, ate the leftovers. So he's saying, you've got to get the kids here now. You've got to stay here now. We've got to make sure that you don't end up as seriously ill.
The other four.
Yeah, because Ian and Heather at that time, in the footage you see because you can find it online now, where she lets herself, she walks out against medical advice, because her reaction to being told you could die unless you stay here and we run immediate tests was, I want to go home.
I'm not going to help anyone get away with murder, but these are not the things that help you get away with murder. But
when you see that vision online, if you find
so the doctors had just said to her, oh well, these poor people that you had round for lunch are all on death's door, and you could be as well. And she goes, right, I'm going home to sort my daughter's bally bag out. God, this is what I mean. She's a thicko. She is a thicko, because anybody would know. But to be honest, she had to go home. She had to go home because she had to get rid of the evidence and start manipulating it.
Find it. The ambulance in the background is the one that's going to be taking Ian and Heather to Dandenong Hospital.
Right.
Because they're getting worse.
And Erin's
walking out to go and make sure the dog's fed and the daughter's got ballet organised.
And she's already fed the leftovers to
the kids. And she's just claiming you don't have to check them because I scraped the mushrooms off.
Yeah.
And the doctor's going, well, you don't know if you've got everything. It only takes a minuscule amount. And if you're a parent and this was a terrible accident, it's hard not to think your first reaction on being told this would be, God, I'm going to call the school and get them in here and get them checked and make sure they're safe.
Side of caution,
yeah.
Surely. Yeah. And is this when and this is where she lost me? Like I had the benefit of the doubt, but the moment, and this is not from the trial transcripts, this is from when it was reported in the media, I bought the mushrooms from, I don't know, there was an Asian food store.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a gotcha moment. In my mind, I thought, okay, well, if there was any doubt. But that's what she was telling.
That's what she was.
The medical staff and health.
Yeah, from the very beginning, she was surprised. The prosecution team make a point, and I think they're right. Particularly now we know so much more about those first 3 attempted murders. what shocked Erin the most was how fast the medical team knew
Got onto it.
that it was death cap mushrooms that were the problem.
Yeah.
And yes, from the very beginning, she's saying, but it was button mushrooms from Woolies, sliced button mushrooms, and dried mushrooms from an Asian grocer in Oakley or Mount Waverley, and then she thinks could have been Glen Waverley. And there's another suburb. There's 4 of them.
That's what took her aback, how quickly they mentioned death cap mushrooms to her, because being the total narcissist that she is and a sociopath who thinks she's so much better than everybody else, she never, these bloody, plebs, these lower beings to her in her eyes would never have worked out it was death cap mushrooms. So when they actually mentioned death cap mushrooms, she just could not believe it, and it caught her on the wrong foot because she thought she'd been so clever. She thought she had been so clever, and she's not clever. She's a thicko.
She mentions. And these were all the suburbs around the unit that the kids and she stayed at during the school holidays in April.
Had a vague idea of the area.
She had a vague idea of the area. She knew there were a lot of Asian grocers there.
Yeah.
But could not remember anything.
There was some selective memory, wasn't there? Because she could remember the packaging.
She could remember the packaging. Yeah, sorry.
But couldn't remember the
shop.
Yeah.
Couldn't describe the shop at all, but could describe the packaging, which was clear. It didn't have a commercial brand name on it. It had a label and maybe a use by date or whatever. And it said something like wild forest mushrooms, or she was a bit vague about, but something like that.
Yeah. Lied with enough ring of truth.
Enough ring of truth.
But hard to investigate.
So she couldn't describe the shop at all or remember where the shop was, but she described the packaging perfectly.
Yeah, corroborate one way or the other.
Yeah, and they never could.
When did the police get notified of these people who turned up at the hospital?
This was Monday's the 31st. So I think it's the Tuesday, the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So by now, Ian and Heather are at Dandenong Hospital in intensive care. Don and Gail have gone to the Austin, which is the top. It's the liver transplant hospital in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I think, I'd have to go back and double check, but I think it's that Tuesday the 1st is when it's called the Bass Coast Criminal Unit in rural Victoria. They call homicide,
right?
At Vic Bolt headquarters in Spencer Street,
yeah,
and say, look, we've got 4 people in intensive care, and one who doesn't want to come and be treated.
And when you think about it, it's obvious, isn't it? Yeah, 4 people in intensive care, and the person who made the lunch, they don't want to stay at the hospital. So seems pretty bloody obvious, really, doesn't it? It doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to work out that there's something dodgy going on there.
And I keep laughing, and I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. And in the end, Erin did go to Monash Hospital for a day. She had low potassium. They gave her some supplements overnight to bring her potassium level up. They had lots of evidence at the trial to suggest that she had some form of small amount of diarrhoea, but who knows? Could have taken a laxative, whatever. No liver damage whatsoever, and she was released on that Tuesday.
Right. So that didn't.
So she's being driven home.
That was it as well, wasn't it? It was the difference, the massive difference in between what they were suffering and what Erin claimed she was suffering, which, even if it was true, was a touch of diarrhoea, bit of nausea, etc. But it was such a dramatic difference between what she was supposedly suffering, between what the other 4 people were suffering, where essentially their bodies were dying from the inside out. Their organs were dying, closing down, dying bit by bit. It was, there's just no comparison. So it was evident that they tried to say in the trial, didn't they, because Erin's quite heavy, that it was because she's quite heavy that she didn't get such terrible symptoms. Do you know, like these are death cap mushrooms, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter if you take, you're not talking, you know, if you take sort of cyanide or arsenic, it's going to kill you no matter how heavy you are or whatever. You know, this is poison, so it's ridiculous.
And with the kids by the childcare worker,
Yep.
while Don and Gail are in the Austin at the top transplant hospital in Melbourne. Ian and Heather are about to get there, and that's when Homicide get called and say, you might want to keep this on your radar.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, 1,000 questions, but that's what we're going to delve into in the next part. We might take a break now, and then we're going to look at the police investigation.
Yeah, so they pause there, and there's a part 2 that I'm going to look at in another video, probably tomorrow, not sure exactly when. But I hope you found that interesting. I found it interesting, you know, because now that she's going forward with an appeal, it's good to revisit, you know, there was so much evidence against Erin, wasn't there? Over 50 witnesses the prosecution called, and the only defence witness called was Erin herself, and she's now saying she was put under unfair pressure. But she wanted to testify. She, you know, she was okay while she was being, you know, asked questions by her defence. It's like, oh, no, don't ask me any difficult questions. When the prosecution got up there and decimated all the crap that she talked, asked the proper questions, proved that she was lying over and over again. Well, she didn't like that. Not, oh, no, you're not supposed to challenge me. That's the essence of Erin. I'm the boss. I'm in charge. I'm in control. I'm the money bags. I control people. People don't question me and, you know, question my motive. She couldn't believe it, could she? So that's basically why she was angry with the prosecution. And we'll see what happens. She may end, as I was saying earlier, she may end up with a bigger sentence because the prosecution are also appealing her sentence now because she's appealing it. They're appealing it. So, you know, could backfire on her. I bloody hope so. Okay, I'm going. I'll see you really soon in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and press notifications. And until I see you again, thank you for watching, and may your God go with you. Bye.